Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Yvonne and you have landed on Ginger Chick Rehab, where I love to take pre-loved secondhand thrift store finds and share the process with you, what I do to these items to get them to be loved again. So in today's video, I am doing some cubbies, some boxes. I absolutely love making these types of items over for you and sharing the process. So here are the little cubby boxes that I am going to be making over for you all today. Some are just a little bit unloved anymore, some are a little bit on the broken side, and then some just need a little bit of updating to get them to be loved again. So we're going to start off our first item with this MDF board little cubby. That means that it has it's like a pressed cardboard, wood pulp, however they make a MDF board. I am not a chemist by any means, but I love little cubbies and I could totally envision making this over. Though it's got some holes. We got some holes on the top. I don't know what was on the top of this. And then somebody drilled some holes in the back, probably because the drawers were stuck at one time. So that's interesting, and I really don't mind them, actually. They may be helpful, so I think I'm not going to cover up those holes. The ones on the top, yes, but the ones in the back, I think I'm going to just make them part of the design. But I do want to update this cubby by getting rid of those wooden round knobs on the front. So they're not screwed in. They're probably like a dowel rod peg. So I'm going to need to just saw them off. So I'm just going to use my Japanese saw. I'm going to try not to cut into the MDF board, but just cut that dowel, cut that knob off. Being able to cut it off flush like that, I don't really need to do any type of filler. I think it'll be fine. But I had a 80 grit on there, which was a little too strong for MDF board, so I just switched over to a 220, because all I need to do is just scuff sand it, make sure where I cut that off is nice and smooth, and scuff sand the rest of the piece, because I do want to paint this. But if I don't scuff sand it, my paint's really not going to adhere properly. You got to give your paint something to grab onto. So one time this must have hung on the wall, but I'm not envisioning that, so I'm just going to go ahead and take those hangers off. So I do the most that I can with my orbital sander to get it prepped. But then there's always that you have to go in and do a little bit of hand sanding. Like the detailed areas, I want to get those, just scuff sand just a little bit. And then inside the cubbies, unfortunately, yes, I need to go and do that too, because I want to paint that area also. And if I don't give it, yet I said, like the scuff sanding is what it's doing, is taking that top coat off. It's opening up that wood, the MDF board, and it's giving something for the paint to grab onto, not just a smooth surface. So now I'll just use the air compressor, get a lot of that sandy dust out of my way, and then I'll just wash this off using some Dawn dish soap and some hot water. Now I want to give this little cubby an old-timey look, so I'm going for an old-timey green. I know it was already green, which will work out perfectly because I'm going to be using Sweet Pickins milk paint, and I hope that it cracks, crazes, chips off a little bit, and the green is the underneath color you see, so it just looks like at one period of time in its life it was repainted. That's the fun of it. So now I know you see I have 3 greens out here because I'm going to mix these greens to make a vintage green looking color. So I'm going to take 3 scoops of the pantry door, then 2 scoops of basil, and then 1 scoop of in the pickle. Sounds like I'm making a recipe, doesn't it? But yes, I am making a recipe. I'm making a unique color. I have done this color a couple times and it sells really well for me, and I just really like the color. Now I need to add the same amount of water as I did powder, and then stir it up for 2 minutes and then set it off to the side until it thickens up a little bit. I did a total of 2 coats on this. Oh yeah, going into those little cubby holes was not the funnest. It just has to be done though. So yes, going in with my 2nd coat. And oh, I hope that I get some chippiness. I do see some starting. Oh, it did some beautiful age. Look at that cracking, crazy chippiness. Now I don't want to just sand it and sand it off. So I'm going to go ahead and seal it in using some Weather Defense Clear Coat spray to seal that in. Oh, all that yumminess. Really love the way that Weather Defense dries. Like within a few minutes, it's already dry and things are sealed in. And within 15-20 minutes, I can still work on the project. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking a 220 sandpaper and I'm making sure that everything is nice and smooth down. Now, if I would have done this before I sealed the paint in, I could have risked sanding off that chippiness. That's why I wanted to seal it in first, but I want to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. That I have all that chippy goodness, I want to give some age to this piece. So some clear wax, some black wax, and then some antiquing glaze. We'll add a little bit of dirt, a little bit of grime in there. And what will happen is it'll really get into where it crackled and crazed, and it'll really show that off even more. So one thing that's really going to change the look of this is adding these little library poles that I get off of Amazon. They're the perfect size for these little cubbies. You can see the original hole where I cut the original knobs off, and that's actually good because for my first one I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to center it, eyeball center it where that original peg was, and then I can work from the rest of the hardware from there. When it comes to these little bitty screws, it's easier to do a little bit of a pre-drill, be able to get your screw started than trying to just hold on to that little screw and try to push it into this hard MDF board. So now the first one was the easy one because I could just eyeball it. But if I eyeball the rest of them, I don't think it's going to look so good. So I'm going to go ahead and use a square. I learn a lot of this from my husband, Chris, because I watch him do it and he is so much faster than me. But anyway, I'm going to give it a good go. So using the square that you can like tighten up in place. So coming from the side, it's all going to be the same. And then for the first ones, I'll lay my ruler down, get those nice and level, and then from there I'll have to measure down from the top of the drawer to make sure that everything is staying level, staying in the center where it needs to be. And though I love wax as my finishing coat because it just makes it feel like the paint is on there, it's such a protective coating. But when it comes to putting hardware on there, it makes your hardware a little bit on the slidey side. So I think this little outdated piece maybe was a like bread box, extra storage in your kitchen. I don't know. But I just love that it had that lid that opened up on the top. I'm not sure why it has two knobs. Especially since it's not a drawer you can pull out. I guess it's a little psych there. And then you realize you can open the top. But most of the piece is MDF board, just like the first piece that I did. And then the top appears to be wooden, but I'm still on the fence on that. I don't think that's a solid piece. Yes, and yes, I have had this sitting around since 2022, so it's definitely time to get it made over. Sometimes you just have to let a piece sit around until you can vision on what you want. So now I just need to take the hinges off, and they just happen to be 6 little screws holding on these hinges. So I mean, there's some nice hinges. You just never know when you buy a piece if the hinges are going to be good, or if they're going to be broken, or are they going to be missing screws. But these seem to be all there. But the one thing that I feel cheapens a piece is these little plastic protectors. So this is where they were screwed in, and they just did little plastic plugs. And you definitely do not want to paint over them because one, they're not going to paint very well, and two, it's just going to draw more attention to that rounded piece of plastic. So I'm going to go ahead and get those popped off. And then I see no need for 2 knobs on this. I'm definitely not putting this one back on, and I'm going to be removing the other one too. Now that we have it all taken apart, it's time to start scuff sanding. And this, if you look at the back of it where the hinges were, you can tell that it's just a slight thin piece of wood over pressed board. So this is not real wood. I mean, it is real wood, but it's not very thick at all. And just scuff sanding it, you can see that there's some water damage going on there. So I planned on painting the top anyway. I wasn't going to leave it like a cutting board type of feature by any means. But yes, as soon as I started to sand the sides, it was already going through that little piece of board. I want to make this piece look older than what it is. So I'm going to take off those sharp edges, those sharp corners. I'm going to round those down. And then even where I sanded the rounded part itself, I'll go in and hand sand that and make sure that's all rounded down nice and smooth, that you don't have those sharp edges. I'll get this cleaned up with just some Dawn dish soap, some hot water, and set it off to the side and let it dry while I'm working on the body of this box. Need to fill in all those holes where I took those plastic plugs out, along with the holes where the knobs were. So I'm going to be using some Bondo wood filler. So it's, you get this the wood putty, and then you add a little bit of the hardener to it, and as soon as you start mixing it together, it starts to harden. So you need to kind of work a little bit on the fast side, but this will be a nice hard surface, especially since I have so many plugs to fill. Like earlier when I just used a little bit of spackling, I just had a couple little bitty insignificant holes, but this I have a lot to fill in. Thing about the Bondo wood filler, it's with like 10 minutes it is dry and it is ready to be sanded. The longer you let it sit before you sand it, the harder it gets and the harder it gets to sand. So it's nice because you can keep on working on a project and you have minimal wait time for your wood filler to dry. So I try to, when I'm sanding it, make sure that I just smooth it all the way back down to where I just see that original hole, and it should be nice and smooth. And I'm going to prep sand this entire piece because I want to get that top coat off and give my paint something to grab onto. I'm going to be painting the inside of this too, so I scuff sand that. So I have a lot of sandy dust. Even though my vacuum sucks up a lot of it, you still do have a little bit that is left behind. I'm going to seal this piece in with a couple coats of shellac. So shellac is a porosity filler. It's a kind of like a primer. I have so much of the brown MDF board showing that's not really like in my final look, the look that I'm going for. I don't want brown to be the color that you see, so I'm hoping it helps my painted here. And then I have where I have the Bondo, and I've got a little bit of damage in the side the cubby area on top that I want to make sure that I get that sealed in. And with the top being that fakey wood, I need to seal that whole thing in. I'm hoping that I don't get too much chippage, more crazing on this piece. I'm learning about the paint, and and you can learn right along with me. So, like the first piece, as you see, I didn't seal it in with any shellac, and I got some chippiness. I got crazing, but I also got some chippiness where it chipped off. So we'll see how this goes when I'm using the Sweet Pickins flour sack on this piece. So I know that this is going to take a few coats to cover, and sometimes I'll have a water bottle near me when I'm applying paint because, especially if I'm using a water base, sometimes your paint starts to dry faster than you want it to, and you can feel your brush grabbing, and that's what I'm trying to prevent. I'm trying to make it so I still have nice smooth strokes and you don't see the brush strokes as much, and the water spritz just kind of helps that along. This box did take a little bit of time because I wanted to make sure that I got the inside, the roof of the inside, the bottom, and then you know how white goes. One coat's not enough, two coats isn't necessarily enough, and three coats is good, but sometimes you need a fourth here and there, especially when you're working with white. And then I want to make sure, I don't want to gob a whole bunch of paint on there. I want to make it still look like it's nice and smooth. So now I'm going to go ahead and sand this. It did a beautiful crayon. It didn't like, you don't really see it too much, hardly at all, any chippiness. It just did some amazing crayon, which is hard to see right now, but I'll be bringing that out in a little bit. And then to add a little bit more age to go with the crayon, I am distressing the edges just a little bit more, letting some of that natural wood show through just on the edges. And now, of course, I've created all that sanding dust, so we'll just get it blown off with the air compressor. Such a handy tool, especially since I'm lucky enough to have a studio to work out of. That I have it all sanded, I'm going to seal it in with some of that weather defense. The whole thing, the whole surface area of this little cubby box. I could not help myself when I saw that these were a copper hinge, so I'm going to add a little bit of the Patina by Dixie Belle. I'm going to do a little bit of Rusty Crusty with a little bit of the aging for some turquoise color to go on them. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the iron paint first, and then immediately afterwards I'm going to do some of the green patina spray and just a little squirt here and there of the blue patina. They'll make it that copper color come out, and that little greenish blue color just, oh, they'll be so pretty. So there's so much crazing on this piece that it's really hard to see. So to pop it, I'm going to be using some of Fusion's aging wax. Oh, it's just going to pop that. That's why I needed to seal that in first, because if I would have left the paint unsealed, my white paint would have turned a cream color, but sealing it in first, well, then the wax is just going to get into that crazing area and pop it a little bit more. So there's like a little two different ways you could have done this. If I wanted to color my paint more, then I could have done that, but I didn't. I still wanted to leave it that nice white. Putting the aging wax on, and then what I'm doing is taking some of the natural clear wax and then going right on top of it, that way that I'm not darkening up my white paint, and I'm just getting those crevices of the crazing to show. So now it's time to put them back together, and I did seal. I don't know why I didn't take a camera close-up of my hinges, I'm not sure, but I sealed them in with some of the weather defense, and now it's time to get this box put back together. Now, one thing I do like to add to the bottom of these size of cubby boxes is some of these little riser fleets. I just buy these. These are clear ones that I get off of Amazon. You can get quite a few in a pack. And they just help rise it up, so then that wood, since this doesn't have any feet on it, that wood is just not running across a surface. So they're pretty simple, just screw right in. And I was not reusing that wooden knob, but I do have this one in my stash that I thrifted. Look at the age of that beauty. I wish I could find a bag like that again. But I can see where my original hole was, so it's pretty simple. I just need to drill all the way through to make a new hole for this one to sit into. So I think my next bread box cubby storage might have been a Frankenstein piece. I don't think that these were originally meant to be together. I'll share with you why I think that. But yeah, I could not get that to go back in together, so I'll have to come up with something else to put the drawer on. So I do think I can get that little doll out. If the one came out, the other one definitely has to come out somehow. So I think, yep, just some wiggling with some needle nose pliers and I can get that doll to pop out. And then to paint this frame, I need to pop out. They use some glazing points, which is very creative, to stick the piece of copper in there. I love that metal accent piece. Though the copper's a little shiny and bright for me for the look that I'm going for, but I'll save these glazing points because I might need to use them to put it back in. And now I'm going to go through and I'm going to scuff sand the entire piece. There is a lot of top coat on this piece. So I'm actually going to switch, because this is real wood, I can switch to an 80 grit and get a little bit better grip and a little bit more of that top coat off. As you can see, as I start to sand it, you really start to see like the whitest chalkiness of the top coat. By all means, there are paints that you do not have to scuff sand. They're not the paints that I use. Usually the pieces I pick up are damaged, they need repaired, there's marks and scrapes and whatnot, so I'm just used to sanding pieces. It's just part of the way that I make items over, you never know, here or there. One time I probably will throw in something that I didn't scuff sand, but usually I tend to regret if I didn't do it or not. So to take down the shininess of this copper pressed metal, it is beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I am a fan of patina. I just love rusty crusty, and the fun of it being copper is that I can add some of that green patina like I did, or the green and blue patina together like I did on the hinges. Oh, this piece is going to be just beautiful. So now when I go to do a patina paint by Dixie Belle, this is the iron. I use a well-loved stencil brush from the Dollar Tree store, and I do a pouncing technique. I don't brush it on because rust is usually built up and like is more of a texture than a brushing, and I really feel like I get the realistic work. It does take some time to pounce it on, but I only have to do one coat by doing it this way. So now I have my patina sprays. I have the blue and then I have the green. So I'm going to go ahead and do the blue first. I'm not doing a heavy on with the blue at all. I'm kind of doing like a half pump, and I'm just really concentrated around those four edges. And then when it comes to the green, I'm going to mist it over the entire thing, a full pump, and just mist away. This box, I'm going to use that same flour sack. I really love flour sack as a white color, so I just mixed up another fresh batch. So yes, this one's going to take a few coats. Also, I did not shellac this one like I did the other one, so we'll see if we get some chippiness, or because this is real wood, is it just going to soak into the wood? That's the fun of milk paint. And I know that sometimes it can be a little bit scary, but I kind of like the excitement of figuring out, like, can I help it along to crack and craze in and chippiness? Or is it the unexpected, like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen kind of thing? That doesn't bother me at all, but I love the aged look of the milk paint. Would you look how beautiful? Oh, my heart, be still. Look at how beautiful that patina did on that copper metal. So I'm going to go ahead and get this sealed in with some weather defense. Oh my goodness, my heart is happy with this piece. No, I did not patina both sides. So on the back side of this, I'm just going to do some flat Rust-Oleum enamel paint. It's on the inside. I really just wanted it to all blend with my total design that I had in mind. And so I will seal the back side of this in with some of the weather defense also after this dries. So the entire time I'm painting on this piece, I was trying to figure out how to get these two pieces to go back together. Even though there were these dowel pegs that you would assume like held it in place and helped it twirl around, but there's no way I could get them in there. I don't know how they got them in there. But the more I was looking at this piece, and once um, I think it was actually a slider top to begin with, and then something happened with the accordion type of drawer that it had on to begin with, and then they tried to replace it with another piece, is what I'm thinking. Because I bought this at a estate sale for like next to nothing, because people, a lot of, not everybody's looking for broken stuff like I am. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get those holes filled back in with these plugs, these dowels, but then I'm going to cut them off even. I do have a plan. I'm going to get them cut off even. Even. I know that seems kind of weird, but sometimes you just keep working on a project even though you're not even sure how you're going to get it right back together at the moment when you start it. So I got those dried, and now I can start sanding. I need to sand this nice and smooth. So this one I did not shellac. It didn't really do a ton of like chippy. It crazed beautifully, but it did not chip, probably because the milk paint soaked into the raw wood, but it is beautiful. So I want to make sure, since you have to flip flop and you get runs and all that, and I don't mind if when I'm sanding it, if some of the natural wood comes through. I'm kind of hoping it is. I just want to make sure that everything's nice and smooth. So now I have this sanded, and now I need to get this little metal piece back in there. Oh, it's so pretty. I'm just so happy with how it turned out. So I'm going to use some of the Titebond's Quick and Thick glue, which is thicker, and then it also is a multi-surface. So the metal to the wood should be good. But I am going to have to use a little bit of the glazing points that were there before, just to have something to put pressure on the metal, to make sure that it's holding in place. And then I can paint them to match. That's not any big deal. So now I'll get the body of this little cubby all sanded smooth. The crazing is just awesome, amazing on this. It's so unpredictable. You just never know, but I'm so happy when it happens. So after I got this all sanded, I took the air compressor to it just like I did before. I want to seal everything in before doing any type of wax. I don't want to darken this beautiful white flour sack paint up by sealing it in with some of the weather defense. And I really loved what the aging wax by Fusion did to bring out on the first piece that I did white. Oh, it just gets into that crazy and it just makes it pop. And because I clear coated the white paint, it shouldn't darken up the white paint very much. So I'm just going to get it waxed on, and then again, to get the darkness off from the aging wax, I'll take a little bit of that natural Homestead clear wax and rub off that excess. Here's where you can see that I think it probably was maybe a roll top at one time, and then maybe that broke or they couldn't get it back together. I don't know. But they did drill in for those pegs, but even if you got the pegs in there, it wouldn't have been a easy, flowy, open door anyway. So all I'm doing is just pre-drilling a hole that's going to go all the way through so I can see where that dowel hole is. That way I can pre-drill and then I can countersink, because I'm going to use a screw instead of the dowel, because I think that's going to help it open and shut easier than the dowels. Even if I could have got it back in, would have. Well, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of technical terms that I don't know how to use, but I do know that I wanted to get the door back on. So not an easy task, and it's not like the complete right fit, but it's kind of unique, now that as I'm painting on it going, I don't really think this was the original door by any means, but I'm going to make it work. So just trying to line it up. And so I thought, okay, well, I was going to try to line it up freehand, but I think I need to put the screws in the sides first so I have something to grab onto and I know where it's grabbing. I'm going to add those same little riser feet on the bottom of this. It just helps that wood not to be on a surface scratching each other's up, or if it is in the kitchen and it's on a countertop, then it rises it up so the bottom of it doesn't get wet by any means. Now, you know how we pickers are. We like to get things for a good price. Now, this little dresser, 3 cubby drawer, was at an estate sale. This estate sale that I went to, it was such a huge estate sale because the gentleman was a huge antique dealer that they did 4 different weekends, 4 different sales. There might even have been a 5th one but this poor guy was there the entire time, even when they would have the 75% off days, 50% off days. Grab a basket, fill the basket for $15 days. Nobody wanted it. So as we go, we are that type. We are like, okay, I'm going to take you home with me. Nobody else wants you, and I'm going to make you over. I don't know if you're missing a mirror, if you were supposed to have a mirror, if you were a kid's little set. Your hardware is a little bit on the grubby side, so I'll just plop that into my water bucket. We'll get that cleaned up. I don't know. I thought it was cute, and I don't really remember what the original price was, and maybe they had it priced high. I don't remember. But I know that a lot of other people that had gone to the sale passed it up, so I thought, you know what, I guess maybe it's time for it to be a new color. So after picking out the layer of debris that was in those holes, I don't know what it was. Sometimes you just can't question it. You just do what it needs to be done. I'll get it cleaned up with some Dawn dish soap and some hot water. It definitely needs a bath before I can start to sand it. Really is a well-made piece. It's nice and solid wood. I mean, there's no stains. There is some on the top. you know, that's to be expected. And even in the drawers, you know, but there's nothing like nail polish or paint or ink spilled in it. So it wasn't terrible. And sometimes, like, I'll go in with my air compressor or a picking tool and try to get any of that gunk out of the corner, just really trying to get it as clean as I possibly can. And then maybe it was the holes that were bothering people, that it was missing something. So, and then since there was a lot of gunk in it, I thought I better fill them, fill them up so dust doesn't collect there. So I'm just using some Bondo like I used earlier in the video. As the Bondo sets up so fast in 10 minutes, I can start to sand. And you can see a little bit of some type of damage on the top, but not, I mean, I've seen way worse than that, but I am going to go ahead and sand this piece. It's a nice solid wood. And I personally think that the drawers are kind of unique. A little bit hard to sand, and I want to make sure that there isn't any gunk buildup in the crevices. So I'll just, you know, like fold my sandpaper in half and just go along there, making sure that I get some more of that top coat. It's not even heavily like shellacked or top coated or really super shiny, but I do need to get it sanded. So yes, I'm really deciding just to work with two colors today. I love white, y'all know that, and that green color is just amazing. So this cute little thing, because it's so vintage, I thought that vintage green would be perfect for it. And I always love to leave the accents, and I've already done so many insides of things today. It's kind of nice just to get to do the outside, but I am going to tape off areas and make sure that I protect that wooden area. So now I did two coats. Look at that beautiful green showing through, and I am going to go ahead and seal the milk paint in with some of that weather defense. Now as that is dry, I'm going to go ahead and really I don't have a lot of sanding. I just like to open up that top coat a little bit more, make sure that everything is nice and smooth. I like to distress a little bit of the edges, just a personal taste, and there is some beautiful crazing. Not as much because it soaks into the wood, but oh, it's so pretty. Now to wax this one, I'm just going to be using Fusion's Antiquing Glaze, just the straight Antiquing Glaze. No need to add any natural wax to it. Just wipe on and wipe off, and then it'll really show those details. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Yes, little cubbies, little places to store stuff, bread boxes. I don't necessarily, you don't always have to use them as bread boxes. You know, if you don't put any wording that says bread, anything like that, you can place them anywhere in your house, any place that you would like to tuck stuff away. So tell me down in the description below if I have inspired you to look at secondhand pre-loved items in a new way, and also which one items that I made over today were your favorite. I absolutely love using milk paint. I love that old time cracky crazing type of chippiness that I get from that paint. So again, thank you so much for watching today's video. And as always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out the channel and you stayed to the end, I think you kind of like this content. So smash that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know if I uploaded a video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows that you like this kind of content. And we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye.